Hello, 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 hello. It is the 25th of October, 2015, and according to my reckoning, it should be somewhere around 6 p.m. UTC, if I am not mistaken.
UTC.
But it seems that I'm the only one here because nobody else has made it for some odd reason. It seems that I'm the only one here. What I'm going to do today is I'll just have to sort of wing it, because it seems that the time change has caught some people out. It seems that I'm the only one here. Let me just verify this, that it's not going to do today is I'll just have to sort of wing it, because it seems that the time change give me out. Seems that I'm the only one here. Let me just verify this, that it's not going to do today is I'll just have to sort of wing it, because it seems that the time change give me out. Seems that I'm the only one here. Let me just verify this, that it's not going to do today is I'll just have to sort of wing it, because it seems that the time change give me out. Seems that I'm the only one here. Let me just verify this, that it's not going to do today is I'll just have to take a wing it, because it seems that the time change
6 o'clock
UTC. Let me just verify this, that it's not going to do today is I'll just have to take a wing it. Winter time. And that is why. Okay. Anyway, it's the Jinn Tonic show. Welcome. Oh, WZH. Too many. Stop spams. Echo. Oh, was there an echo? Oh, I don't know. All right. So I shall drink less and this will stop the echo, I guess. All right. Then this is the Jinn Tonic show. It's the 25th of October. It's 6 p.m. It's 6 p.m. UTC. And this is a program, a platform where we try and discuss Islam. We can talk about other religions or other gods. There's plenty of other gods, but I think we should stick to Islam and what the effect is of Islam in today's world, because there's so many places which apparently talk about Christians. So I think we should just stick to Islam. The way that it works is I do some definitions, and then the video of the week. I forgot about the video of the week. Okay, this has not been my week. I forgot about the video of the week, and the misconception of the week. That should be easy to find, and then we're going to go through some news. Now, I'm going to try a different format today because I quite like the way that Ike is doing it in his show. So I'm going to try and copy this and see if it works here as well. I do not know, so just bear with me, and if it works, it works. If not, well, then at least we gave it a try. Okay, so we are not here to proselytize. We're not here to convert. We're not here to slander people. We're here to criticize, and we're here to mock bad ideas, okay? What does happen is that people, and these are Islamogetics, okay, or Islamogists. There are people who are the apologists for Islam, and they then start getting like really personal and really stupid. And this is something where I then start getting personal, and I don't just criticize the idea, but actually criticize the person. Because people like sources or Hussein or whatever, they lie, okay? They spread lies, they deceive Muslims. I mean, anybody with a brain will see that they are talking absolute nonsense. But unfortunately, not everybody has this. Not everybody is able to see through this, and this is why there's a lot of Muslims who will simply say, come on, these are other Muslims. They are not going to cheat me, they're not going to lie to me. Yes, they do. And that is why I do expose people in the case of the Aira people. I have not seen anyone who is that dishonest. I mean, there's a lot of apologists out there. There's a lot of people who distribute a lot of nonsense, but they're not liars the way that the Aira people are. And this is why then it gets a little bit personal, which is not actually the idea, but it does do that. And afterwards, I always feel guilty. But then I think, no, come on. I mean, this is stupid. I mean, I'm the one who is reacting. If they wouldn't be doing anything, I would be sitting quietly with a different hobby and not talking about Islam here. But there we go. So what I'd like to do is have people come here and explain why it is that they believe this. this, because for me, I'm baffled. I must be quite honest. I mean, come on. If so many people think that there's a God, and if so many people think it must be the Islamic God and not another God, maybe they're right. But then I would want to know about this. Because come on, if this God is right, and I'm going to end up in some hell burnt and with the flesh burnt off and nothing to drink, and nah, come on, if this would exist, I would try and avoid it. But then you have to convince me, you have to show me something that this is true. Because just telling me that, if you go into the water after you've eaten, you're going to die of a heart attack, that's not going to do it. So telling me that you can't read when the light is not adequate, and if you squint on purpose, your eyes will get stuck like this, and if you masturbate, you will grow hairs on the inside, or you will go blind, or something. These things are not true. So I was told these things as a kid, and at some stage I grew out of that, and I realized, no, they're not really true. And the same thing happens with other things. So, this is where you look for evidence, and this is where you look for some sort of reason why you should believe what others believe. And if they have this, then why not provide it? Telling me that the Qur'an is such a miracle is bullshit, because it's not. Any child can read the Qur'an. All it takes is just the first page, and you will see that it is not a miracle. It's badly written. It's just take the first page and you will see this. I mean, it's the same as with the Bible. Just open the first page, start on Genesis 1:1, and you will see this is utter nonsense. It just takes one page to show you this cannot have been written by anything superior to a human. And the same thing is with the Quran. So if somebody has some information that I should have, then please provide it. And the Quran says in 16:125, okay, go and declare what it is that is in the Quran and your belief and everything, and do it nicely and do it politely. But apparently, okay, I should use Islamopists. Yeah, don't know the Quran too well. So anyway, why we are doing this is not because we're Christians, not because we are Sikhs, not because we are Rastafarian or Taoists or whatever. I am now a firm believer in the flying spaghetti monster, absolutely, because we had a guy on the show last week, in the German show, and this guy was brilliant. He converted me, and I think being a Pastafarian is brilliant. I mean, this explains the world, and everything you've always wanted to know is right there at your fingertips, and there's nothing wrong with being a Pastafarian. And at least Pastafarians get something. Every single day I'm eating pasta. And of course, it would be nice if I would be wearing full pirate's regalia with the left nipple exposed for permanent communication with my God. But, well, anyway. So we're not trying to convert people because we are non-believers. Just as I am an A-racist and an A-astrologist, I'm also an A-theist. That means I don't believe what others might just believe. And because I don't believe something, they expect me to identify as something that I am not, which is an atheist, which I find stupid, because I think a human plus a God is a theist, and a human without that is just a human. So I think the word, this is stupid. So there's no reason to be called atheist. Anyway, but I do, because, come on, I'm trying to provide a platform for a discussion. And if that's what it takes, I will let myself be called atheist. I even agree, even though this is the biggest load of rubbish, I practice being an atheist. I have a goal. I do things. This is an ideology of being. No, I mean, it's not, but they want me to call myself practicing atheism. I don't know what I practice. I don't know what I do as an atheist. I have no clue, but apparently this is what I need to do to survive in this world today. I need to practice atheism. So there you go. So I do not believe in gods, and I am an agnostic at the same time. How can I be that? Well, it means that the atheist, as an atheist, I do not believe. In other words, the answer to the question, do you believe in God, is no. And the answer to the question, do you know whether or not a God exists? The answer is also no. So the agnostic says, I don't know, and the atheist says, I don't believe. So that makes me, if I follow the logic of the theists who love these little labels, makes me an atheist agnostic. There you go. So anyway, the thing is that the theist is making the claim, so the theist should be able to answer the questions. So I don't understand why it is so difficult for theists to come here and explain what it is that they believe. I don't understand why they are so scared. I mean, I don't bite them. I'm just going to ask them a question. Okay, what is it that you are believing? Why is it? Can you define God? Can you define this thing that you worship? Or why is it that this thing says in the Qur'an, I am going to create all humans to worship me, and then fails 80% of the time? How does that work? So, we're just going to discuss these things. I don't know why this is so difficult. Anyway, it seems to be because we don't see theists here. We're discussing Islam. I see this a lot of times, that people say Islam is a religion, and it's a religion of peace, and blah, blah, blah. Well, it's neither. Because Islam has a goal, okay, which is a caliphate with Sharia. Now, Sharia is Islamic law, which is based on the Quran and the Sunnah. Now, this is why we're here. This is what we're doing. This is why we deliver here the different variables. We discuss what is actually in the Quran and what is in the Sunnah and how does it affect Sharia. This is what we're trying to do. The stream keeps dropping. Oh, shucks. Yeah, this is Vaughan. Unfortunately, Vaughan, I think, is stretched a bit. We're not on a paid service, so if I would be really rich, I would go and buy the professional service, which then has a lot more bandwidth. Ike has already tuned it so that I don't use so much bandwidth, which should improve it, but it doesn't always. No, we don't control the bitrate of Vaughan. What I can do is I control the bitrate that comes from the Hangout into via the broadcaster, and the broadcaster then sends it over to Vaughan, and this is like mini, but Vaughan still is overloaded with this. So there you go. Now, Islam has a goal, all right. If you take the goal, the implementation of Sharia worldwide, then you see that there are statements coming out of the Quran, coming out of the Sunnah, which are clearly political. If you look at the history of Islam, it's always been political. The first thing that they did is establish a caliphate. The whole division between Sunnis and Shias is over who is going to be the caliph. So it's always it's always been a political organization. So Islam, and you cannot separate Islam and politics. There are other things, like in Christianity. There are also some statements which you can use for that, but there is no goal in Christianity to establish it as a country, as a... I don't think the Pope ever has said that he tries to get world leadership the way that Muhammad has, or the way that Islam does. So if you take the statements coming from the Quran, you will see that they are definitely... they can be linked to a ministry, whether it be interior, foreign affairs, justice, finance, war, whatever. But there are a lot of things that I don't know of any religion which actually gives you the fractions that somebody inherits in the religious texts. But in Islam, you get this. So this is what we're trying to show, what actually is in the Quran, what it says in the Quran. What are the ideas that the Quran is based on? Now, it's a pity. I think that people are very suspicious, because I invited this Sam Gerrans, who's a Quranist, and I would love for him to explain the Quran to us, because he rejects the Sunnah and says, no, the Quran is good enough. He has a way, and he has retranslated the Quran, and he says you only need the Quran, and it would be very interesting to hear how he does this. But unfortunately, he's not here. All right, so I must admit, this week has been a little bit hectic, and I didn't find a video of the week. If somebody wants to provide one or suggest one, I mean, there have been so many videos this week which are either brilliant or bad or whatever. Misconception of the week. What kind of a misconception can I think of? Sharia. Misconception of what is Sharia? Sharia is Islamic law, but The funny thing is that it is being used in the UK, for example, as a placeholder for family law. In other words, you will see in the news today somebody who's been denied access to their child due to Sharia. And this is what some people think, that Sharia only manages family law. It's not. Sharia, I mean, Islam is a way of life, all right? And Sharia determines this way of life. Sharia sets the boundaries and the worldly punishment for those that somehow overstep the boundaries. Because, for example, you go to a Sharia court if your wife has been unfaithful or something, and then they decide whether she's going to get stoned or not. So this is what happens in a Sharia court. So Sharia, yes, is Islamic law, and yes, it's based on the Qur'an, it's based on the Sunnah, but because the Qur'an is vague and ambiguous and needs and requires, it's an absolute necessity that you interpret this, and then you get the explanation for the Qur'an, the Sunnah, which is the sayings and the whole traditions of Muhammad. They also vague and ambiguous. They also require interpretation. So Sharia does not exist as this is the book of Sharia. There is no such thing. If you steal an apple, then this happens. If you steal a car, this happens. If you defraud somebody for 5 million, this happens. No, it doesn't say that. It's always something that is determined by the Sharia judge at the time of judgment. Okay, so let's then go and talk a bit about, did Chris say something or not? No. Okay, then let's go and do something about the news, and let's see if this format comes through. If I go into, and now I need to find this stupid thing here. Now, can you see this in Vaughan? Can you read this? Can you make this out in any way? Wow, there's a huge delay today. I can see this. Okay, now I see this in the Vaughan stream. So this takes a long time. All right, so this is something that I found for me, and this is quite amazing, because Tony Blair apologizes for mistakes over the Iraq War. And this is the first time that I see any one of them saying, yep, we fucked up. And then they admit that ISIS is actually a byproduct of what happened there. So this is the first time that I see this, and kudos for him for saying this. What happens if I make this a little bit smaller? Can you still see this now? No, I need to wait until it works. Oh, shit. Anyway, so I think it's good that people do have the courage to finally come clean and say, okay, yes, it was a mistake, and it's better that he did this now than to stay with the stance that they used to have, which was don't admit anything. Like Bush will still not say this. Bush will still say, no, we had good reasons, blah, 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 and Hussein had to be removed, he was a dictator. No, it's not up to Bush or anybody else to determine who is a dictator and who should do this and who should not. So no, I don't agree with that. This is a sovereign state, and the US does not get to say who is doing what to whom and da da da. I see GPZ is here. Okay, so if this works, let's go to the next one. This has already been mentioned in the chat. Well done, gents, ladies and gents, for being on the ball. Yep, the guy who came to school with a digital clock and was arrested is now getting a lot of money for this because people arrested him in the US, and he's now getting a salary to go to Qatar. Now, the Qatar Foundation is brilliant. All right, now I'm a great believer in education. Okay, I think that education is the only way to go. And the Qatar Foundation is an educational facility. They have people from all over the world, and they don't care what religion, what. They don't give a continental damn. They go according to education levels and things like that. And this is brilliant. So they give you a little bit of background because most people don't know Qatar. Okay, a lot of Europeans learned about Qatar when the news was broadcast that they are going to host the 2022 World Cup, the football championship. So a lot of people did not know what Qatar actually is and where it is and what its claim to fame is. So Qatar is a tiny place. I mean, it's like 1 million people. And that's it. And then you have Doha, the capital, and this is with like, I don't know, 800,000 people, or maybe less. I can't even remember how many people live in Qatar. It's a small place. It's not big. It's just around, down the road from Dubai. It's just across the bay. There's, I don't know how many, 5 or 6 flights every single day between Dubai and Doha. And it's, I think I like it. All right, it's very quiet, nothing big, but at least it's real. Okay, it's not like Dubai, which I think is a huge, big fake thing. So there you go. You still want to talk about Blair or what? He be found guilty of what?
I was just telling the others that the Chilcot inquiry is going to be released fairly soon now because they started to get back some of the last requests for editing. And I think the last revelation was Blair writing to President Bush stating that he was eager to go to war with Iraq about 3 or 4 years before the Iraq war actually started.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So Blair's going to be fucked.
Oh, shit.
So he's going to say sorry in advance. He won't be found guilty of lying to Parliament because he didn't lie, he presented the evidence he was given. He'll get away with that. He'll get done for possibly breaking UN rules in a sort of like a covert way by slipping in and attacking. He'll probably get done for war crimes during the actual war itself. He'll get done for probably not being such a nice chappie after all. He won't get a knighthood. He won't get to be a lord in the House of Lords. He'll still keep his money from bribes. He'll still keep his money from all the jobs and positions he'll get. And he's just said sorry because he can now avoid the press totally. He can go into seclusion, get up his brick walls with his CCTV to keep the media out, and you'll never hear from him again. But he'll live the life of a lord, if not in the House of Lords.
Oh goodness, okay. And I thought this was positive that somebody comes clean at last.
That's what I'm guessing will happen.
I'll settle for not having to hear from him again.
Yeah,
no, I don't like the guy. I mean, this is for sure.
I side with Blair insofar as Saddam was somebody who had to be gotten rid of. He was a nasty character. But
I think there's an interesting discussion about that, because there's a piece that was posted by someone, I don't know, in this chat, the Vaughan chat a few weeks ago, about whether the mentality of the region is, not conducive to democracy.
It's not. Islam is not conducive to democracy.
Yeah, and also the culture.
You can only come to the conclusion the only way to keep Islam down is to have a very strong, brutal dictator.
Yeah, exactly.
If you don't have a strong Saddam, you'll have a strong ISIS. It's the only way.
So, I mean, the solution might have been to attack Iraq and force Saddam Hussein not to, unnecessarily kill people, but not to knock out the entire regime and cause chaos.
Yeah, but I believe you could have done that politically.
The only solution would have been to go in there and colonise the place. Literally take over like the empires did of old. I'm sorry, but it's the only way to stop a brutal empire like Islam is to put in another brutal empire. And empires are not tolerant of anybody who tries to usurp them. Anyway,
I agree, but you can't go in there as a policeman because now Russia is doing it. China is starting to do it. We can't have these. I don't think we should have these countries that decide what it is that other countries are allowed to do. We have the United Nations. Everybody can go to the UN and say, listen, we don't want that. And then if the United Nations then decides, okay, we don't want this, we can't have this, then you can go and say, okay, we're going to implement sanctions or whatever, and do it diplomatically, and not go military, send military forces there and start a war. I think that's totally wrong.
The UN's been totally ineffectual, hasn't it?
Well, when Iraq invaded Kuwait, the United Nations said, okay, we're allowed to use military force to chuck Iraq out of Kuwait again. But then that was it. There was no necessity to go in again. At least
the UN put up a charter saying if Saddam didn't get rid of his weapons of mass destruction and allow supervisors to go in and investigate to see if he had any left, then war could be sanctioned. That was the position before Bush decided to go in himself. The UN had actually given permission. America would not have invaded otherwise.
So he was given a political and diplomatic solution or option.
He was given that edict from the United Nations, which he used. And as for the United Nations being a force to provide protection for citizens, what a load of tosh. I'm sorry, Spam, but who is it who is trying to get blasphemy laws passed in the UN? The Islams.
Yes.
All the Muslim countries.
Yes.
And the only reason they're not getting it through right now is because people like America and Britain have the power of veto. And that's only because they've got nuclear weapons.
No, that's part of the Security Council, right?
I'm sorry, I don't know. Chris, your voice is extremely low.
Oh, right.
You either need to speak closer to the mic or turn up the volume of your mic.
Is that better?
Yes, I can hear you a bit better now. What were you saying?
Oh no, I was just talking about the UN resolution and basically the Bush, Cheney, and UK scammed them with their yellow cake bullshit.
Yes, it was a bit of a scam, but it was legally okay. They used their lawyers on the west side, the American and British side. They like to play the game of cricket, you know.
Yeah.
You can cheat, but you mustn't be seen cheating.
Yes. Well, didn't somebody in Germany file to arrest Bush and Cheney for war crimes? Bush and his whole cabinet?
We've got it in this country. There is an organisation that has arrested Bush, citizens arrest. Has done a citizens arrest on Blair a couple of times now, except he won't go. They've actually gone up to him and said, you've been arrested. They've gone through the field, but he won't leave and actually go to the police station. Dick Cheney and Kissinger can't come to England because they've got citizens arrest warrants out on them.
Okay.
There's quite a few people who are war hawks who have been sort of like put into that fear of being arrested. But it's like what Nixon said during his famous interview with David Frost. When you're the president, you can do no wrong. He means it. And he's absolutely right. When you're the president, you don't break any laws because you're above it.
Yeah.
Oh,
And that's the problem democracy faces.
Well,
yeah, but to get back to the original issue, though, I don't know whether it's even just the people of that region, maybe it's just people in general. The assumption is that they want democracy, and that we just provide them with the institutions necessary for democracy, and it will kind of turn out okay, even if it takes a while to shake out. But can it be the majority of people just want a strong man in charge? I mean, in Russia it looks that way. It looks like the majority don't care about whether Putin is democratically elected or not. So it could be the same way in the Muslim world.
Well,
Yes, a strong leader.
I think I watched an Adam Curtis documentary relating to the problem with Iraq post the US invasion. And apparently the Iraqis were very open to democratic elections and kind of a whole civil.
Which Iraqis though? I mean, did they interview certain?
No, this is just like general Iraqis. They were most of them seemed to be very pleased that someone had taken Saddam Hussein away, and they wanted a whole kind of reformation of the government, and including democratic elections. And then the problem was that the US started installing their favorite little puppets.
Not quite. During that time, you also had the Shia and the Sunni Muslims starting to form militias, and they were after political authority as well. So yes, I'm sure there were a group of people who were being oppressed who thought Saddam's going was a wonderful thing and they could have a democracy, but you also had those religious factions all vying for power, all trying to grab authority, and that's what ended up with the mess. America had to step in because they were killing each other.
Well, apparently, yeah, I agree, but apparently a lot of the discontent against the U.S. Policy was that the U.S. promised all these reforms and elections and just merely started installing their own kind of government above their kind of wishes.
I'll take that with a pinch of salt, because although the Americans did have their favourites, there was an awful lot of Islamic propaganda being pumped out anti-West, who accused the Americans and the British armies of doing horrendous things just so they could get the publicity and people onto their side.
Sure. No, I've never said that there's any innocent on any side of war. I was just recording a documentary. I mean, I like Adam Curtis, but also I don't take everything he says.
Yes, you're quite right, but it's very, very complex. You just have to take into account that it's not one simple group causing all the problems. There's lots of people stirring it all up, and they're all in it for power and gain and usual stuff. It can't be
because it's war, and war is a terrible fucking mess.
GPZ, can I ask you now? Was it in your eyes okay, right, to invade Iraq by the US or not? That's not
I personally think, because of what was going on before, the invasion was an absolutely perfect thing to do. What was not handled correctly was the follow-up and the transition from one dictatorship to a beneficial regime for everybody.
What about the destruction of the Iraqi army, was it?
The Americans' fault there was when they took over the country militarily, they disbanded it. They didn't do that in World War II. Patton, as a different sort of general, when he took over Germany and running it, he kept all the Nazis. He kept them in positions of power. He used them to keep the country from falling into chaos. That's not what the Americans did with Iraq. They got rid of all the authorities, all the people who were being looked up to before as leaders, and left chaos.
But just as a thought experiment, if they had left, let's say they'd left those power structures in place and done a good transition and had democracy, you've got a Sunni, it's mainly a Sunni country, I suppose, so a mainly Sunni parliament, maybe some Shia. I don't get how you can have an Islamic democracy, because surely their entire role is how can we interpret the Qur'an in the appropriate way here. Man-made law is got to be incompatible with that, hasn't it?
Very incompatible, but they might have just had to do what the old caliphate did with the Ottoman Empire. If you disagree with the empire, we crush you. And that's what the Ottomans did. When the Saudi Arabians went onto their Wahhabism and they started to spread Islam, what did the Ottomans do? Went down and destroyed them utterly. There is no love in Islam.
Yeah, but I mean, what function would the democratic chamber or chambers actually have?
Well, it probably
basically interpretation.
It probably would have been secular. Live your religious life how you wish to live it in your zones.
So it would have been un-Islamic?
It would have been run Islamic in your zones, but don't force your Islamic zones onto other zones which might be Sunni, if you're Shia.
Yeah, but that's fundamentally un-Islamic, though.
Well, that's just kind of like what Gaddafi did with Libya. He just said you can be Islamic as you want, as long as it's only in the house.
Yeah, as long as you don't mess with the government, be as Islamic as you like. That's what the caliphates did. That's through most of their history after the original companions.
Well, that doesn't work, though, does it, on a national level, because you've got to have someone setting the laws and someone enforcing the laws.
Well, technically, the caliph or the caliphate, he kind of forms the role of like a warrior. He gets to make all those kind of decisions regarding religion, law, and any other kind of prospects of statehood.
But isn't Sharia supposed to be all-encompassing? It's supposed to explain how you know what you do in any circumstance.
Well, yes, but you get ruled by Caliph, and you gotta obey the Caliph, no matter who it is.
In theory, they should have to implement the same set. Every one of them should have to implement the same set of laws because it was dictated 1,500 years ago.
Yeah, but they don't exist. This is exactly what we're trying to show, that you don't have a set of laws, that everything is down to interpretation, which is why Sharia is individual.
Well, the basics of Sharia are all the same, because there are kind of sets of commandments you can use from the Qur'an and from the Hadith. But after there's very kind of like tiny little subset of basic laws and precedents, it just starts to diverge crazily and wildly, because everything is completely, as you said, down to interpretation and who says what fatwa when.
So basically, they're saying that God dictated a bunch of laws, but 95% of the laws are so nebulous that God was that unclear.
No, they're saying it's very clear. They're saying exactly the opposite. They're saying it is very clear that this God wants us to stone women to death. The other people say it's very clear that this guy did not want women stoned. So you get both groups saying it is very clear that the opposites are true.
Yeah,
which means that by definition God was extremely nebulous, because humans were able to so easily
misinterpret his law.
Yeah,
but they don't see this. This is the problem. They will say no, it's actually very clear. It's quite obvious what this God wants, and this is why He gave us the Quran in this version, and then sent Muhammad to clarify this even further. So it's very clear what we need to do. Yeah, but the others are doing it this way. Yeah, but they're doing it wrong. They don't have the correct interpretation. They don't know that for them it is not clear. For us it is very clear. And this is what both groups are saying. And this is what you find again and again and again. And this is the problem in Islam.
There's no true Sharia medicine.
Yeah, exactly.
Just to go back to Tony Blair. So he will not be punished with...
highly unlikely.
Prison.
It sets too much of a precedent to punish a leader of a country, be he elected or dictatorial. The only time you find any former world government leader being accused and arrested for war crimes are A, the ones who don't manage to escape to a neutral zone vast enough, or the ones which are so minuscule that they don't have a big government like America or Russia supporting them. Idi Amin is still alive and well and living in Saudi Arabia, I believe.
Gaddafi isn't, though.
They got Charles Taylor.
Gaddafi was caught, wasn't he?
He was
You're
killed.
listening to this. He was killed by
was
his own people in his country. If Gaddafi had escaped and maybe got to Russia, he'd be alive today and living in a nice mansion.
No, it would be in Egypt because his, I think, brother or cousin is in Egypt.
There you
Very
go.
secure.
He would have been secure, living in a life of luxury. Leaders tend not to get killed because other leaders realise that once you start killing leaders, the civilians might not stop with that one. They might be after you next.
I would.
They did with Charles Taylor. They made a big show trial out of him.
Oh, sometimes they do shows. It's like I said, you've got to be up to a certain height in power and authority before you get the rest of the world after you. I mean, what did Hitler have to do before they decided he was to be executed? But Napoleon, he wasn't.
No, I think it's this idea that you put your leaders on trial is relatively new.
No, James I. You go back in history, leaders have always been put on trial, but very often they get away with it. That's if they are caught. If they get to a neutral country or one that used to support them, nothing happens. They're let off.
I'm just trying to think, were there French kings who were actually executed?
Yes, in France they got rid of the authorities, but that was during the terrors. They were slaughtering everybody back then. What's his name?
Okay, so what we have is we have a situation that the British leader who signed off an attack on a Middle Eastern country, which led to the killing of the leader of that country, led to complete chaos and a complete destabilization of the entire region, is today alive and kicking and saying, oops, we made a mistake.
Yes.
Oops, he made a mistake and he'll get let off.
So is that
I don't think he's admitting to a mistake. I think he's actually admitting to doing wrong. He's
admitting to causing a vacuum which ISIS evolved.
Yeah, but he says he was led by false intelligence, which is not true.
Someone else.
Yeah, but this is not true. I mean, he clearly lied.
Yes, no, but this new revelation is that they found documentation that he collaborated or even conspired with Bush to start the war against Iraq.
Okay, so what is going to happen next? Does this now push Bush to do the same thing?
This is the problem: is that what's actually going to happen to everybody involved?
Well, everybody involved. You only have 2 countries who are involved in this, because all the others, I think, just went along.
No, we're talking mainly just the UK and USA, the Blair and Bush.
Yeah, exactly. This axis, this brotherhood. If you want to,
axis of good or what?
I was looking for an adequate.
Well, let me give you a different example rather than Bush. Another one that's recently happened in the UK was a member of the House of Lords got accused of paedophilia. There was a number of witnesses who all stood up and said, "This man raped me as a child." He has not been arrested. He is currently not even having a trial. He is having what is called investigation of the evidence.
Yeah, because the police are also in this pedophilia ring, so how can you accuse...
It's not just the police. If you attack anybody in authority, you are attacking the establishment. And the establishment being all the people who've risen through university, all the people who've risen through the social strata of a certain class, will not let you take them down. It's not conspiracy theory. It's what you do. We as a group of friends here would protect each other from outsiders attacking us. If I saw Jeremy on the internet being attacked by a Muslim over here, what he's talking in YouTube, I'd write and defend him, wouldn't I? And that's all the establishment is doing. It's defending its own.
But if the police also wouldn't be in this ring involved,
when they get up to that sort of high level, yes, they are.
I think it's becoming more and more difficult to actually keep doing this. I think the pushback, just because of the availability of social media and giving everyone a voice, is providing it's making this occlusion from the authorities much more difficult.
Well, I'll tell you another little story.
They may be able just to slow the process, but if enough people make enough noise, the wheels of the law will have to keep turning.
Back in the 1980s, I used to go to Stonehenge. It was a big open free festival. The year that Maggie Thatcher closed it down, she sent the police who were being used against striking miners. The BBC and ITV showed one clip of the police attacking all of the hippie convoys, smashing glass, covering babies with glass, beating up adults, beating up women with truncheons. You'd think that was pretty horrific, wouldn't you?
Yep.
That clip was shown once, and it was hidden. You can actually find what the actual court case eventually ended up being. It was a battle of the beanfields. The police blamed the hippies for everything.
Yeah, but this is something you get everywhere. I mean, I know this. I mean, we've had this in South Africa all the time, where they went into the townships and then suddenly the documentation went missing and they never showed it again. So I know this from the...
It's authorities covering up for the authorities.
Absolutely.
It's establishment protecting itself.
This just happened last week in South Africa. They had all the student protests.
Oh, shit.
And yeah, it got... I mean, for the most part, the students were well behaved. They were orderly. They didn't fuck around, and it was all the kind of like these agitators in ANC shirts and SASCOC shirts who were causing all the shit. They were throwing around all these porta potties and setting them on fire.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, and then the police then started causing shit, saying that it was the kids, the student protesters who were causing all the trouble. And this was kind of like the constant agitation that the protesters got from the police.
Shit.
Yeah, and that's what will happen to protect Blair. They'll slip him out. He'll get
Can
away
I
with it.
bring this round back to the Islamic part?
Yeah, I was just going to say, let's leave this now
Because-
and go to the next one.
No, let us stay in the Islamic part, but because we all see there mistakes were done right in the past with Iraq. Even if GPZ said it was necessary, but Tony Blair said there were mistakes done. And the same mistakes we see again in the field of Syria. So why all governments who are involved do not learn from the old mistakes?
I think number one, they're too stupid to learn, and number two, there are ulterior motives. Okay, they want these little puppets because they don't think. They are stupid. They think that if they gain influence somewhere, this is going to somehow benefit them in the long term. It doesn't. And this is exactly the right question what you're asking. Why is it that they don't learn? The answer is very simple. They're too stupid. Because they're like children. They think that they are, sitting on the drawing board and pushing figures and puppets around, and this is how they're running the world. They're not. But it gives them some sort of weird satisfaction that they are able to do these things. And this is what I find weird.
So that's the US-UK mentality. Which figures are they moving around in Syria then? Are they thinking of the rebels that aren't ISIS as their team?
Exactly. If we go and bolster this group, this is going to give us this position. For them, it's like a chess game, putting figures on a board and saying, okay, if we push this a little bit here, then this is going to happen, and then maybe this is going to happen. Then in the long run, we're going to have somebody there who's going to be our ally against all the enemies we have. Bullshit. Let people live the way that they want to, and that is it. If they want to be part of something, then they need to either come and align, or they don't. I'm not going to force somebody to be an ally. That's not an ally. So I think they're being stupid.
But then you'll get like a media image of dead children or something, and then there'll be a load of pressure for people.
Yeah.
A load of pressure for them to invade or do something about it.
Well, I don't give a continental fuck, I must admit. I mean, this is really, it's sick. For me, politics is sick. What is that now? Oh, shit.
Well,
That's
the
how
video
the
quote
enemy is feeling.
the video quote I would have liked to have put up came from Bill Maher's Ridiculous when he interviews that American senator, and the senator says, "Well, you don't have to pass an intelligence test to join the president's." See, do you?
Exactly.
You remember that one? That was
Yes.
so much of an eye opener. That one.
That was hilarious.
Religulous.
Okay, is Hangout coming back to normal? No, it's not. I don't know what the hell is going on with the Hangout.
I also don't know, but the reason, because I asked the question just recently, is I looked a little bit in the past how this in Syria started, and we have the same pattern of lying and deceiving, meaning the so-called the West accused the Assad regime of using bio weapons, meaning mustard gas, I think.
It started before then. It started off with the drought.
No, not really. That's the problem. How came this whole issue into the press of the Western world? It started with the bombing of I don't know the town's name, but it started with a bombing, and immediately on the same day, around the globe, these pictures and little clips were published, and all of a sudden everybody knew that this was Assad. Even the UN didn't.
That was Obama's fault. When after
Yes,
some of
you're
the
right.
terrorist groups were already fighting, he had said, "We're not going to get involved unless this red line of chemical weapons are used." And so when chemical weapons were found to be used, that's when Obama
They
said,
weren't
my
found.
spy service has seen
That's the
from the
problem.
skies that he's launched these weapons from his territory. And that's when the press leapt on it as a news story.
But that's the problem and the issue. It wasn't found that Assad used these things.
Yes, it was.
They were just
The UN,
no,
when the UN in their investigations discovered the chemicals were made in Assad's plants. That's how
yes,
they
So
they
they
found
say,
the
yes.
chemicals. But let me finish. The problem is in the whole issue is they found rockets, some rockets, and they looked at it and they saw the rockets like, okay, these rockets could contain fluids and deliver them. But neither the experts who were the UN inspectors who researched this whole issue couldn't say if there was really a gas around, somehow a gas, or from where they were launched. They called experts about the rockets, how far they could travel, etc. And everything pointed out that it couldn't be like it was published in the end by Barack Obama and the other governments. This just couldn't happen. That's the problem.
Well,
And the second,
well, to counter that, when it was all exploding in the press, I had my own field of experts, the Rational Skeptics Forum, who were presenting the case that it was Saddam. I thought it was the actual rebels at the time, so they were trying to persuade me, and I had people who were ex-military, rocket experts, engineers, chemical experts, all telling me how it was and pointing me to various websites which would detail how it was actually it was actually Assad's forces who launched them, where they even showed me pictures of where they launched them from.
but that's a point. The rockets had a delivery reach of 2 kilometers, and the point that everybody said was the launching point was far more away, so it couldn't be that. So already there you have to lie. And the second thing is, every major secret service couldn't detect this before. Every major secret service relied on bloggers. There was a special blogger who miraculously found pictures and clips all over the world and turned it out to be an expert. All of a sudden, nobody knew him before, but as a blogger, he was all of a sudden an expert. And the secret services of this Western world then just replied what this blogger said, and they didn't really investigated anything. They just used this blogger as a puppet, and this blogger was interviewed by so many stations, radio stations and TV stations, and all of a sudden it was right what this blogger said. And just recently a little research analysis by MIT rocket specialist and weapons specialist came out, and he said that something was going on. The US UN inspectors hadn't published their reports, but already newspapers knew which rockets were launched, etc. So there is something inside going on very, very badly in this whole issue. So we have the same pattern like in Iraq, where nothing is really clear, and in the UN report you will not find that the inspectors can say it is clearly Assad who did that. They just said it could be delivered with this rocket fluids, and they reported how long the rocket.
Oops, this just broke up now. Or is this me? Okay, what does that mean? Ah, yes, what is this? So who left and who's still here? Why can't I hear anything? Oh, goodness. Why me? So am I the only one who can be heard at the moment, or what? So can anybody hear anything? Okay, can anyone hear Ike or any one of the other people, or just me? Oh goodness, what? I can't believe it. Do I need to restart this or what? Okay, let me close this and then start a new one and see what happens. Can't do it.